Hello, this will be Okazaki's or mine, patch 5.3 top 80 carry picks. This is a list which will showcase the strongest ADs in my opinion for this patch. So I am an EU-West player. My in-game name is Okazaki Tomoya, and I'm currently Masters Division 1 with 204 points. I've been playing quite a lot of AD carry this season, and I think in season 2 I made AD. So I think I have a pretty good idea of which AD carries are strong in the current patch and in the current meta. This video will sort of have the 3 top AD carries, I think, in no specific order. And also then afterwards I will quickly go through really what I think is important during early game, mid game and late game, and some general tips for AD carries players out there, since I know that a lot of you have been asking me about which picks are good for solo queue and how you sort of transition winning your lane into winning the game. So, the first pick that I think is incredibly strong right now is Graves. He is my most played champion this season. I think that he is probably the strongest AD carry right now, and the reasons are because he has a high burst potential. So with his Q and R, if he is fed, he can pretty much half shot any AD carry. He's incredibly versatile due to his smoke screen and his E. And he's one of the best snowballers in my opinion, simply because you can melt away any champion that comes close to you once you are fed, because you benefit so much from flat AD. He's a very good playmaker in the sense that you don't have to wait for your team to do something. You can sort of go in by yourself, you can get picks, create picks by yourself, and in that case you would make it into a game of 4v5, and then you would be able to win team fights that way. He also has an incredibly strong early and mid game phase, which is probably in my opinion one of the most important factors in solo queue, because you want to dominate the early game, you want to dominate the mid game in order to efficiently close out games, which Graves is incredibly good at. He does have a few downsides. He has low range for an AD carry in my opinion. He's pretty item dependent in the sense that if he doesn't have flat AD items or attack speed, he is pretty much useless. Some AD carries such as Kog'Maw, in my opinion, relies a little bit less due to his W. Vayne relies a little bit less on their items, whereas Graves is heavily dependent on items. If he doesn't have any good items, he's useless, and his late game isn't that good, even though he has an attack speed steroid on his E. Once you start getting into the late game phase, he doesn't burst people as hard, his damage falls off a bit, and due to his low range, he's easily punished by any team with basically competent players that can sort of CC lock you down. So those are his downsides. I think that in the current meta, there are probably no other AD carry who is as strong as Graves in the laning phase. And that's probably why he's one of the best ones right now. You know, you don't need to rely on your team to get snowballs or to win team fights, because you can basically do it by yourself. With a high kill pressure support, like for example Annie Blitzcrank, you are able to basically snowball your lane by yourself, so only relying on you and your support, which is in my opinion the most important factor when it comes to playing an AD carry in solo queue, that you have the ability to do that. My second top AD carry right now is Sivir. Sivir actually is a very good pick against Graves due to her spell shield, which I will go into a little bit more detailed afterwards. She has seen some resurgence in competitive play lately. I think that she's very useful in solo queue right now due to how her kit works, and I think that if played properly, she's one of the best AD carries right now, due to that she's incredibly versatile. So she's great for engaging. Her ultimate allows your team to basically get a free engage off. It's incredibly powerful. You can bait out spells by using your spell shield, and her spell shield is insanely powerful. If used properly, you can basically block one free spell, and those could be game-changing spells. Like for example, Tibbers. You could have Grace Ultimate. You could have Lissandra Ultimate. You could have Taunts, Affairs, which makes spell shit incredibly good, considering it doesn't cost any mana and actually replenishes your mana. She has very good wave clear. Her W and Q allows her to wave clear from a relative safe distance. She's great at pushing towers. She's great at taking objectives in that sense. And with some items on her Q, she does a lot of damage. So she's able to be used sort of like a poke champion too. She is, in my opinion, probably the best team-oriented AD carry, because what she does is, with her ultimate, she's able to allow your team to kite more efficiently. She's allowed your team to chase. It just gives your whole team such an advantage over another team which doesn't have the utility, and that's why I think that Sivers is a great pick right now. Just as with Graves, she has some downfalls. She suffers from low range. She has no dash or jump. She requires pretty good positioning and kiting. It is true that all AD carries require this, but it's a lot more important on champions that do not have a reliable dash or jump away. Like for example, Tristana. You are easily punished if you, for example, walk up too far. You can't get out. You only have your spell shield, and if you spell shield the wrong spell, then you might just die because they'll CC you down. Those are probably her main problems. She's a little bit less item dependent. She provides too much utility with her ultimate for her to be solely reliant on items like Graves. She is just overall a very strong pick right now, and she's strong versus supports that have CC. So for example, Shresh, Blitzcrank, Annie, Leona, these supports which have seen a little bit more of a resurgence in play and are popular in solo queue right now. If Sivir is played properly, she's able to sort of counter all of these supports, which just makes her one of the better AD picks at the moment. And for my third one, I think it's Kalista. Kalista is a relatively new champion. She has seen some pro play, but not a lot. A lot of NA pros prefer playing her. And there are people who started maining her in solo queue, and there's a very good reason to why. She is the best AD carry in kiting, just because of how her passive works. As long as the enemy team doesn't have any heavy lockdown CC, so let's say a Vi or a Lissandra or anybody with really a AoE stun or a target stun. If the other team doesn't have any kind of CC like this, you are pretty much able to carry the game solo. Because they will never be able to catch you. She has multiple build paths. She can go Blade of the Ruined King, Runans, or she could go Runans into Bloodthirster. I've seen people go Infinity Edge, Phantom Dancer, etc. All of these build paths are okay on her, which allows her, for example, if she's behind, she can go for a Blade of the Ruined King. And then Runans, if she's ahead, she can go for BF into Runans into Blade Bloodthirster. There are so many different combinations available for her, which is incredibly important because you can adapt your build according to the situation. She has a great scouting ability, so the Ghost. It allows you to prevents your team from face checking basically late game. It allows you to have better lane control in the sense that you can send a ghost into the enemy tri-brush, and to check that, it allows your team to have more vision, and considering how long it is, it's incredibly useful, an incredibly strong utility spell at the moment. With her ultimate, if you are, for example, duo queue with someone, you are basically going to be able to use it to its full potential. You can obviously engage with it. Since it's a knock-up, you can save someone. It's one of the most frustrating things, in my opinion, to play against someone who is able to just give someone a free ticket out. It's like, if you thought Trash Lantern was bad, Kalista has something new coming for you, because it's incredibly bullshit when she can just save someone after they've engaged. If the ultimate is used properly by both parties, it's an incredibly useful ability. She is due to her passive difficult to lock down, as again, if you don't have any hard CC, you're probably not going to catch any competent Kalista player, just because of how difficult it's to simply click her and to actually catch up to her. And her rend also allows pretty easy dragon and baron securing, as long as she's the one taking it. Of course, if you are on the losing team and the enemy's team is taking it, your rend is probably not going to do much. But if you're allowed to stack it up, you can use it to very efficient means. You can basically outsmart your own jungler, which is always useful because you don't really trust your jungler as an AD carry. There are, however, some incredibly potent downfalls to her. She's squishy, she's difficult to play, she's mechanically probably the most demanding AD carry, and the reason behind this is, in my opinion, the two ones which are difficult to play are Draven and Kalista. And Kalista sort of takes it to another level in the sense that if you dash in the wrong way, or if you don't constantly dash, you are not using your passive and you are not using Kalista properly. You have to always pay attention, which can be a bit difficult, especially if your mechanics are not that good. She gets countered by hard CC more than other ADs in the sense that she can't dash, she can't spell shield like Sivir, and she's really squishy if you actually get to lock her down, since she can't AA. That allows her to pretty much get insta shots, especially if she's behind. As Graves, she's reliant on items. If she doesn't have attack speed items, if she doesn't have that bloodthirst there by a certain time point, she is not that useful, because she needs to be sort of ahead to be efficiently used. She's sort of like Graves in that sense that she doesn't really supply her team with much. Of course, her ultimate is useful, but it's not like a Saber ultimate, which makes her probably the most difficult AD carry to play at the moment. Which, of course, if you want to main her, you will have a lot of success if you can master her properly. But if you just want to pick her up for one game, let's say you've never AD carried before and you want to pick her up, that's probably a very bad idea, and I would suggest you play an AD carry which is a lot easier, for example like Graves. So these are the three top champions, or AD carry champions in my opinion for this patch. Some AD carries obviously still very good. I will just tell you about two of them. So I think Jinx is incredibly good. She's incredibly strong when she's not snowballing. It's very difficult to stop a Jinx after she's snowballed. She has one of the best late game DPS as an AD carry due to her Q and her range. She has obviously she's able to change between her ult attacks, which gives her a lot more utility compared to other champions. She's able to use that to poke. She has chompers to close off choke points to allow people not to chase you. She has a lot of utility, and she has a global ultimate. The reason why she's not, in my opinion, one of the top picks at the current meta is because she's a bit team reliant. It's difficult for her to simply get kills by herself. She needs, for example, the jungle or the support to really help her get the picks or have an incredible impactful game, and I don't think the other three champions really need that. They can sort of make plays by themselves, but I think that Jinx really sort of needs her team to get her ahead, and once she does that, she's incredibly useful. But if she doesn't do that, if your team doesn't help her, then she's probably not going to be as strong. She suffers from lack of mobility, and since she doesn't have a defensive spell, playing her can be quite difficult. For example, if you play against an Annie, well, if she flash tippers you, there's not much you can do, which makes her a little bit more difficult to play compared to like a Sivir, who obviously has the spell shield. Another AD carry I think is strong right now is Corki. With Valkyrie, he has a good escape. He's obviously incredibly strong mid-game. Probably the strongest mid-game AD carry in the sense once he gets his Triforce, as long as you are equal. Triforce will probably always be better than just an Infinity AD carry, just because of how much stats Triforce actually gives. He's also one of the few AD carries that has a mixed kit, so if your team, let's say, goes for full AD comp, so you have like a Riven top, Yasuo mid, a Vi jungle, well, you can pick Corki and you have some magic damage together with the Rocket's poke, which is very nice. So it's quite a nice wave clear. He has an incredibly burst in lane with his Q. As long as he lands his Q, he's incredibly strong because there's very few AD carry abilities that can actually hit you for that much. For example, Silver Boomerang does, but as long as you stand within creeps, it won't do that much damage. Same with Graves Buckshot. If you stand at the range, at the edge of the range, Corki's Q will probably do more damage to you. And with the Sheen proc, he is very strong mid game. He did fall a little bit off with the Mal Valkyrie mana nerfs. He gets punished quite heavily by using abilities and mana early game, which is one of the reasons why he's no longer a top tier AD carry. He's still incredibly strong, has a lot of utility, but I'd say you pick him mainly for having a little bit more versatility in the poke, having a little magic damage, having a very safe AD carry, instead of the true carry potential that you really need in the solo queue at the moment. These are the AD carries I think at the top. I think that Jinx and Cork are a little bit worse to play in solo queue. Of course, I'm not saying that Twitch, Ezreal, Lucian, MF are bad AD carries. They have specific situations where they can be very good. For example, Ezreal's seen a lot in play. But I think that they have some kind of flaws that just make them not that ideal at the moment in the current solo queue meta. I think that these AD carries that I mentioned are the ones that has the easiest laning phase, or that their mid to late game is enough to cover up for the weaker laning phase. And I think that any other AD carry, which basically is not mentioned right here, have glaring problems, and if you want to pick them, go ahead, but I would say if you want to acquire pretty much the easiest elo, play one of the top three, and if you really want to play Jinx or Corki. So now that I've sort of told you a bit about the champion picks, I will now go and explain how you should play the game itself. So this is not a guide to take you hand by hand through the steps for mid game, early game, and late game. It is a quick key point reminder of what you should think out throughout the game. I won't mention anything about mechanics or specifics. These are all just general key points that you should think of and have in mind for basically every single game you play, regardless of what AD carry you pick. So let's start with the early game. The early game is crucial for an AD carry because you want to get to the late game phase if you need to be, and in order to be a force to be reckoned with late game, you need to have gold. So, level 1 strategy. There are many kinds of level 1 strats. You want to be in the river to ward for your jungle. You want to put down your trinket ward. You don't want to get invaded. You want to help your jungle in that sense. You want to think of if you are gonna take the Gromp or Crux, or if you're just gonna help your jungler, or if you're gonna try to push your lane. These are all key points that you should think of at level 1. A lot of lower elo people don't really put too much thinking into this, but if you decide to take Gromps, and you hit an early level 2, you are able to snowball the game from that. Or if the enemy team is taking the Gromp and you can go and interrupt them, you can pretty much get a easy summoner or a first blood. So it can actually quite heavily impact on your game. These are key points that you should think of every single game, what you're going to do level 1. Never just stand a turret. Always think of what am I going to do before minions spawn or before the first monster spawns. What is your game plan? The second thing is a matchup. So if you play against, let's say, a safe matchup, so like a Soraka Ezreal, and you're playing, let's say, a Graves Blitzcrank, You don't want to play the poke game with them. You want to be the one to make the trades. You want to hit level early, level 2. You want to make all-in trades. You don't want to trade with them over a long period of time simply because of how sustaining the lane is. You don't want to play a poke game versus a poke comp if you pick an all-in lane. A lot of the people, for example, who pick Graves gets counterpicked by Caitlyn. And if the other team has like a Nami Caitlyn lane and you have a Leona Graves lane, well, you're gonna have a bad time if you play extremely safe. You have to be constantly punishing them, going hard, and if you don't do that, if you just let them push, you've lost the lane, and you will probably lose the game too because the enemy AD carry is much stronger than you. Think a lot about the matchup once you're on the loading screen. You want to know how to play it before you actually get into the game. You don't want to just sort of wing it. You want to have a clear goal. Should I play passive? Should I try to punish them? And how do you want to play out the lane? It's important. Farm, farm, and again, farm. I can't stress this point enough. A lot of players in lower elos think that farm isn't that important. If I'm like 10 CS behind by, let's say, 10 minutes or so, that's not that bad. Well, that's pretty bad because as an AD carry, your farm really is a pretty good indicator of how good of an AD carry you are. Of course, your positioning matters, but if you have really bad farm, you're probably never going to climb very high simply because the opposing enemy AD carrier will probably farm well. You want to consistently have 80 at least CS around 10 minutes. You want to keep maybe 160 plus towards 20 minutes and so on. You don't want to have maybe by 30 minutes you have 150 CS or by 20 minutes you have sort of 100 CS. Those CS points are very low. I mean, 60 CS, that's maybe like around 1,000 gold or so. 1,000 gold is an extra pickaxe or a vamp scepter or 10 vision woods. It's a huge deal. You don't want to lose free gold. And farm is incredibly important. That's your lifeline as an AD carry. Farm, CS is what makes you a good AD carry. And this is incredibly crucial if you're going to play it, because if you farm bad on an AD carry, you might want to think about improving your mechanics or think about why you are not farming efficiently. Don't be passive. Apply pressure and punish the enemy bot lane for taking anything. I think this is one of the key points that a lot of AD carries and supports in lower elo don't do. They don't try to trade with them. They have inefficient trades. They get, they are really passive. It's basically like a farm fest for them in solo queue. A farm to 20 minutes and let's see who's most useful afterwards. No. In solo queue, bot lane is the kill lane. It's the best lane to snowball because you can snowball twice as fast as any other lane because you have 2 opponents. If you crush bot lane, you will win the game 9 out of 10 times. You want to be aggressive. You want to be the ones who are forcing the enemy out. You want to be the ones who sort of can get the kills, right? So if you're passive, you're never going to be able to do that. You're never going to be able to carry from bot lane. So you want to be aggressive. If they go up for a CS, auto attack them, throw down an ability. Don't let them take it for free. And as time goes on, the enemy will play more passive, and then you can be more aggressive. And if the enemy jungler comes, if they, let's say they come at like the 10-minute point where you've gone back, you have a BF, maybe you even have a fucking pickaxe, well, you'll be able to 2v3 them. If your jungler comes and counter ganks, well, 3 easy kills for your team. It's incredibly important. Don't be passive. I think I see way too many gold and below, even plat below, people who are just so incredibly passive, just waiting for something to happen. You have to be more aggressive. Not to the point where you turret died in level 2, of course, but you want to punish them for taking CS that you can basically punish them for. It's important. That's what sort of differs better AD carries player from worse AD carries. And I think if you properly master this technique, it will instantly shoot you from silver to maybe diamond. That's how big of a deal it is. It's incredibly important. So once the mid game rolls in, I have a lot of people asking me, so now that I've taken the first turret, or what do I do during mid game? Like, yeah, well, you push up your lane, right? That's important. You push up your lane so that you can go in group, right? And after you've grouped, when you come back to bot lane, the wave is again pushed towards you, so you get all the CS. You don't want the wave to be pushing towards you when you walk upwards, because it would, your tower will take all the farm, right? And then the wave will be pushing towards the enemy, and then you lose 3 creep waves worth of CS and experience, right? You want to push up your wave if you're gonna try to roam. You push up your wave, you allow it to push towards the enemy. This applies pressure to the enemy, and at the same time, it will allow you, once you finish grouping, to get CS back. This is how you efficiently group wave control management. I won't go too much into detail into this, since there are a lot of people who have explained it properly, but it's important. This is one of the key points to playing a successful mid game as an AD carry. You group with your team and you try to rotate between mid and bot. In this sense, I don't mean for you to stay with your team for 10 minutes and sort of try to take 1-2 CS at a time, right? And trying to split it with your mid laner. That's how you get bad CS in the game, right? So what you want to do is, if there is a chance to take an objective or a kill, you roam. If there's nothing, you stay bot and farm. If you feel that the enemy is going to try to keep on ganking you, you don't stay in your lane. You go to, for example, mid lane or something like that. Just make sure that you don't die. That's the main point, right? You don't want to, for example, go from bot lane all the way to top lane and then all the way back to bot lane, and then go from bot to mid and then top. That's pretty inefficient rotating, right? It's very exceptional cases it happens. Top lane is by itself, right? You as a bot lane don't go up unless you're like a support. For an AD carry, you only rotate between mid and bots in 90% of the games, because any further and you're wasting your time. You're not efficiently farming, you're not efficiently getting experience, and that's important. You want always to be farmed, always to have the experience needed. So at most, rotate between your mid and the bot lane. Try to stay as much as possible bot lane to sort of get the farm. It's important, and you try to get either the bot or the mid turret. The reason why you want to get these 2 turrets is because it allows you to get a lot more breathing room when it comes to getting dragon. You can get wards much easier. The enemy team would be able to see it or punish you for it. That's why you want these 2 turrets. Mid is better than bot lane turret because it gives a lot more vision control for both bot and top. So if you trade a mid lane turret for bot lane turret, that's a worthwhile trade. It's not like a huge deal, but it's still worthwhile. It's just better to get the mid turret. So you want to farm the jungle in between walking from mid to bot. This is another thing that a lot of maybe lower elo players don't do, is that they walk to mid lane from bot lane, and then they walk backwards, and they walk back to mid, and then walk back to bot, right? This is inefficient. You don't really want to do that. You want to take probably 1 camp every time you rotate between your lanes. The reason why is because if you just walk back and forth, you are wasting time again. And it comes to you not having the gold you need and the CS that you need. It just all comes back to the fact that you're not farming efficiently. Tell your support to ward bot side and roam. People don't do this, in my opinion, enough. I even see people in Diamond not realizing this. A successful support is a support who can roam and let the AD carry be safe bot lane. That's a good support. And you can rely on people to do that in solo queue. You have to tell your support, ward bot side jungle, or ward the river, or wherever if you have first tier towered up, if you first tier has fallen, depends on the ward. Of course, the wards will depend on the situation bar. But tell your support. If, for example, you feel like you won't die, and okay, I will play a little bit more passive, right? Tell your support to go roam. There are 2 reasons for this. First, it applies map pressure. If they don't know if the enemy team doesn't know where your support is, how are they going to gank? If they gank, it could turn into a 3v2. It allows your team to get a lot more breathing room on the whole map, on the map as a whole, as long as you don't die, right? It also allows you to get more farm, get more experience, and get ahead of the enemy AD carry. This is another key point that Your support roaming will allow you to. However, if your support just goes and roam randomly and doesn't have any wards bot lane, and let's say you're behind and the enemy can dive you, well, that's not a good roam, right? You want to tell your support to roam as long as you know you won't die. That's the main point, because if you die, then your support roaming doesn't really help. Unless, even if she or he is here, you will still die. Well, then just tell her to roam, because her staying bot lane won't be very useful for you. But communicate with your support. Tell him what to do. A lot of a solo queue is about telling people what to do. Don't rely on people to know what to do. You have to be the one telling them, right? And buy a blue trinket, right? I see so many people just staying on a yellow trinket until 50 minutes into the game. They have 6 item builds, and they're like, huh, on the last back, I can buy a blue trinket now, can't I? Yeah, let's buy it as my 7th item. No. You buy the blue trinket once you basically have your BF, or you have your Infinity Edge or something like that. You don't want to wait until the game is over to buy your blue trinket. The blue trinket allows you to check brushes which your wards can't reach. It might be dangerous. You might think there's an enemy jungle is there. It allows you to check dragon and barons without actually face checking if you're behind. And it allows you to see rotations from, for example, if the mid lane is coming to your bot lane, you can prevent them by doing that by, for example, scanning the river. It's important. Blue trinket gives you a lot of utility. However, you don't want to upgrade it, let's say, way too early, because the yellow trinket is still very useful, right? But you want the blue trinket because if your support has a sight stone, you don't need an extra ward. You know, generally, get a blue trinket when you go and buy your BF, because that's pretty much when your support has a sight stone. Or maybe you can get it a bit later, depending on if you're ahead or behind. If you're ahead, get it earlier. If you're behind, get it later. But get a blue trinket before the game ends. It gives you a lot more utility and a lot more room for error. So, for example, if your team doesn't have any wards on Baron, well, you have a blue trinket, so you can scan it from without face checking, and that's important. So, finally, late game has come. And this is where the AD carry should be the main actor, right? It's your time to shine. You've been farming the whole 50-minute games just for this last team fight. So, get Baron control. You want wards around Baron all the time. You don't want to need to face check it. You don't want the enemy to be able to sneak it. You want a ward there all the time. This, blue trinket obviously helps with this, that you can check it. But, if your team is forced to go into Baron without any kind of wards and it's completely dark, you will probably get engaged on, and you will probably lose the game. Or maybe the enemy will sneak a Baron. Baron control is important. You might tell me, well, this is not my responsibility as an AD carry to ward up Baron. Well, it doesn't matter if it's not your responsibility. Simply because if you don't ward it up, you will lose the game, and you don't want to lose the game. You have to tell your support, ward Baron. Don't just let him go alone. Walk with him. Tell your team, okay, go with the support, because you don't want the support to get caught out and die, right? If the enemy team is all SS, you want to get vision control of the objectives without actually dying. That's the key point in solo queue. And if you have to be the one who follows him, well, then you have to be the one who follows him, right? Don't give up Baron control unless Baron is down. Of course, if Baron is down, it's not that important. If Dragon is down, it's not that important. If it's up, you should have wards on it all the freaking time. It's important in late game. Always keep bot pushing towards them when you want to group. This stems from mid game. When I tell you push bot lane up whenever you want to group, so it will keep pushing backwards to you. Late game, it's not that much more about you getting the bar back. It's more about if there's, let's say, 30 CS in bot lane pushing towards their second tier turret and you're grouping in Baron, well, somebody will have to go to clear that wave, because this is solo queue. People have to get the farm. Guess what? 4v5 engage right there. Allows you to win and close out the game. If the enemy, otherwise the creep is pushing towards you, well, as an AD carry, you probably want to farm that. And you're probably going to let your team get caught out and die, because that happens a lot in solo queue. because people don't listen to pings. And in that case, you know, you don't want to be in a situation where that happens. You want to push up the wave. You want to know, say like, okay, well, bot lane is pushing. Let's group and take Baron control. And if you see somebody bot lane who doesn't have a TP, free Baron or free picks. These are the two important things, and this comes down to being able to manage creep. As again I said, there are people who's done a lot of videos about this, and you will be able to see this. You'll be able to find it online, so I won't go too much into too much details. Positioning is absolutely key. So as an AD carry, you have two things you have to do: positioning, farming. Those are the two key points. If you can't position, well, you're probably not that good of an AD carry. If you can't farm, you're probably not that good of an AD carry. It's only by doing these two well that you're a good AD carry. You know, you want to maximize your TPS while not dying. It's incredibly frustrating to see people sort of decide to walk somewhere and die, right? Or get caught out by a charm, or getting way too close to an enemy tank lines or something like that and die. As an AD carry, you want to be the last one dying. Because you are your team's DPS, right? You can't just die. That's just not acceptable. You have to be the one who's dishing out the damage. That's your main purpose. Your team has been feeding you the whole game, right? CS and experience. And if you just die, you are useless, right? Keep your CS up. What I mean with that is, you know, you don't, for a 60-minute game, you don't need 580 CS, but you don't want to have 60-minute game and then you're like 250 CS, right? That's not good. You want to have something around 400. The reason for this is you want a full build ASAP. Once you have the full build, right, then it doesn't matter that much anymore. If you think, you know, I don't have to change anything, let's the other maybe team members see if they can get some CS or experience if they are not level 18 yet. But you want to hit level 18, you want to get 6 items ASAP, and that you again get that by killing creeps. So don't just think you don't have to CS anymore, because you have to CS throughout the whole game. Objectives over kills. What I mean with this is, if you see, let's say you have a team fight, you got a 3-4-1 maybe, so you know the enemy is down by 2 players and you are 4 up, and you have the chance to take Baron or kill the 50 HP Janna that's running away. A lot of people actually decide, well, if I kill this 50 HP Janna, that 300 gold is going to make me win the game. Well, surprise for you, but if you take the Baron, everybody in your team gets 300 gold. It's maths, right? You take the Baron, you don't chase. For example, of course, if the enemy who ran away is the jungler and can smite steal, well, you probably want to kill the enemy jungler, or at least pressure him off Baron so he can steal it. But you don't want to just chase the support for half the map and then let the enemy respawn and then kill you. That's dumb. Don't chase too far for kills. Don't greed too much, right? If you can secure it within, I'd say, maybe 4 seconds, get the kill. If you can't, you have to measure if it's worth it or not. And especially late game, you know. Objectives are pretty important. You want to get that inhib, you want to get that Baron. And while kills are important, and it allows you to do that, ultimately taking the Nexus will win you the game, not getting 50 kills. Don't chase too far for kills, okay? Objectives are more important. And also, paying your team what they should do. A lot of people are like, well, I go 10-0 in lane, but I still can't win the game. Why is this? Well, you know, you're relying on your team to do shot calls. That's not really a good thing. Would you give your newborn baby to another stranger to take care of? Of course not. You know, you have to take care of him. You have to literally tell him, well, you know, you have to hold him like this. You have to feed them like this, right? It's the exact same concept. You don't just let your team take over. You have to be the one who makes the shots, who tells them, okay, guys, time to group, or time to stop throwing, get vision control Baron, and etc. You know, you want to be the one who do the shot calls, especially in lower elos where shot calling is incredibly important. You want to be the one who does the right calls at the right times. You don't want to have to lose a game while you're 20k gold ahead because your Blitzcrank decided he's gonna do something stupid, right? You want to ping. Your ping should communicate with your team. It will help you win a lot more games, as long as you have good shot calls. If you don't have good shot calls and your shot calls are pretty bad, then don't shot call, or learn how to shot call, right? You don't want to make your team do stupid things. So, on an ending note, I'll be giving you a few tips on what I think are important just throughout the game. These tips are applied, throughout the game instead of like a specific early, mid, or late game phase. So don't panic. Please don't panic if the enemy takes the 2 first turrets or dragons or whatever. You're not gonna die from it. Giving them 2 dragons, so the first dragon is not gonna kill you. Don't rush in when they're taking the dragon, when you're like 1v3 as an AD carry and think you can get the steal. No, that's a bad idea. And you give the enemy a kill, or you have to pop a summoners. Just let it go. It doesn't matter. The first 3 dragons, I'd say, are pretty much all useless. Don't, give up 3 extra kills for it just because you think dragon is important, right? It's, if you can't realistically contest it, try to steal it or just farm. It will be much more worthwhile for you. Tell your team what to do with pings. This is incredibly even more important in late game due to how the death timers work. But you don't want to be completely silent. You tell your team what to do. You are the shot caller. You are the AD carry. That allows you to do the most damage and also at the same time guide your team to the victory. Pings are very useful. Be confident, right? When you play AD carry, you are a god. You are literally a god. You are the most important player on the team. You literally have one of the team players. You have 20% of your team resources trying to get you fed, right? You have on your champion almost 40% of the team's resources, right? You are like the baby of the family. You are the precious, right? Be confident. Don't be so scared. Don't play like you're some kind of fragile glass doll, because if you do that, well, you're not going to be very useful. Look at Reckless in LCS. He plays like he's made out of glass, and he's not very useful. It's a prime example of the concept, right? You want to be game impactful. You want to be the one to make the plays. It doesn't matter if you're AD carry support. This applies for every role. And a lot of AD carriers think, well, since I'm the AD carry, I'm gonna stay behind and just wait for my team to do something, right? You can still make the picks. I'm not telling you to 50 minutes into the game walk into the enemy team and try to bait them, right? Because that's probably a bad idea. But early game, you can make the game-changing plays. Pinoy is a very good example of an AD carry who actually takes risks, and often he's rewarded by it, right? So be aggressive, be a carry, don't be just a bystander, right? You're the main character of the show. You're not like a background character. Again, think carefully of your matchups. What I mean with this is not actually your lane matchups. It's more about how the enemy team matchup is. For example, if they have a lot of lockdown CC, if they have a lot of gankers, so like a Pantheon and a TF jungle mid, you probably don't want to overextend level 6. Or if they have like a Shaco, you probably want to make sure that you don't get killed early game. Think about the matchups and how you're gonna play out the game. It's important. You don't want to just wing it. You want to be conscious of how you want to play the game. These are important things that you might not think they are very important, but it will increase your win rate substantially, because right, even if you're behind, let's say 3 dragons and 2 turrets, well, you have a better late game comp than them, and as long as you get through mid to late game, you just win. Or if the enemy has a full AD team, and they're up by like 5 kills, well, you don't have to sweat it because they're a full AD team, right? You will win late game. These are, important things to think of. And lastly, you are your team's damage. Do not get caught out and die. If you die first in a team fight as an AD carry, There's never ever an excuse. If they use like 6 ultimates on you, it doesn't matter because you still died first, right? That's your fault. Never blame your team for that. That's just you having bad positioning. You know, you want to have good map awareness. You want to be aggressive, but at the same time safe. You know, calculated aggression. If you die first, your team doesn't have any damage, unless you're like 30k gold ahead, in which case you can probably AFK anyway. You know, if you die first, you will probably lose your team the game. This happens a lot in solo queue. I've done it a lot, and you know, if you want to be a successful AD carry, make sure that you know where you're positioning yourself and that you consciously think or realize that you are your team's AD damage output. If they don't have you, they are useless. So, you know, play according to that. Think of yourself as the biggest treasure in the whole world and everyone wants to get you. Or think that if you play American football, you know, you are the actual football, right? Everybody, your team wants to protect you, the enemy team wants to sort of get you, right? That's the mentality you play, right? Even if they all rush you, you still have to get through to the touchdown. You still have to kill all of them, and you're not going to kill them if you're dead. So just make sure, you know, you don't get caught and die. So thank you all for watching. As always, any feedback is appreciated. I haven't actually decided which role I want to do next. I'm probably thinking about maybe jungle or top lane, because AD carry is sort of similar, I guess, to support. But if there are a lot of people requesting for a specific role, I would be of course will be always willing to change this. You know, you can contact me. For people within the UCLU society, you can contact me on Facebook. And for the people who are coming from Reddit, you can probably contact me on Reddit, or you can just post comments in the comment section. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Maybe there's something that you know you want to clarify it on, or if you don't, or if a lot of people don't know how to properly creep manage, you know, I could probably make a video explaining that. But again, there are very good resources out there explaining this concept. It's not very difficult, and it will improve your gameplay a lot. So take a look at that. If you have any specific questions about specific matchups or anything like that, please feel free to ask, and I am still available for coaching. I am a little bit more busy right now, but if you have a YouTube replay of you playing, you can just send it to me. We can discuss for a time to discuss about it. And I think that's about it. Thank you for watching.